You are listening to the Batflip Podcast, a baseball podcast from Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network. Here are your hosts, Damian and Matt.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Batflip Podcast. My name is Damian here with my co-host, Matt. We are coming to you on December 28th of 2021. It will be our final episode of the 2021 year/season. And basically, this is going to be a little bit of a different episode. Since the lockouts happened, we don't really have much baseball news to talk on. So what we figured we'd do on this episode was kind of give the year in review for the podcast, and kind of our view on what we thought of the game of baseball, or what it has brought to us through either the podcast or through baseball this year. And then just kind of at the end, kind of what we're looking forward to in 2022, if that's through the podcast or through the game of baseball itself. But before we jump into all that, how are you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty good. I've been just hanging out. I'm off work all week this week because of with it being the holidays, and it got me a couple days, and then I had some vacation days left over. I can't roll over to next year, so I've been using those, and so it's felt weird not having to go into work the last couple days and the rest of the week too. So I went to a football game today that didn't go as I was hoping it would, but yeah, we'll going forward, we'll see what we'll see. I've been doing pretty good though today and this week. So
Well, that is awesome to hear. So let's just jump into kind of the numbers of what we have, what we've had for the podcast this year. And when I started like looking over them a couple weeks ago, when you get those like end of the year kind of wrap ups from different sites and whatever, but it kind of blew me away with how, at least for the growth of what we've seen from this last year. Coming into 2021, we were somebody that would get like 5 to 6 listens on an episode, and we would had probably, I think, I can't see the actual subscriber count now. Apple has started limiting that for some reason, but we were somewhere around like 400 total listens or something like that. And this year alone on Apple, through 45 episodes we've uploaded this year. This will be the 45th episode. So this is kind of, the stats are a little skewed. We've had 527 total listens on Apple and 79 total listens on Spotify, with 75 different devices starting an episode on Apple and 22 consecutive or concurrent um, listeners on Spotify throughout the year.
yeah, that's really cool. Thanks to everybody out there who wants to put up with our rambling about baseball for an hour a week. Uh, but um, but yeah, that means a lot. I think a lot of times, we we that's kind of what we're here for. We want to interact with people. We want people to be able to hear our opinions on the game of baseball, what's going on in the sport, and and a lot of it helping grow the sport. And I know that for your standpoint, that's been really important to you, is to help get people around you involved in the game of baseball through our podcast.
Yeah, it's been really nice to see and hear people, just around my life, if that's even from people I deal with at work, or if it's family members, or even like neighbors around me, and or neighbors around family. I've had multiple people come and say, like, I used to like baseball, and then I kind of fell off, and then now, like, knowing that you do a podcast, and knowing that I can trust your opinion and what you guys are saying, that like it's got me back into the game, and it's not only got me to listening to you guys, but it's got me like wanting to watch games again, and getting more involved in it. Being able to have them ask me questions, and it shows that even though we are still a very small podcast, it is doing something to help grow the game, even if it's just by 11 people listening to us each week we do this. It is pretty cool to me.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's something that we really, especially people around us in real life, getting into the sport and everything. That means a lot to both of us when we have people that are out there that we can turn into baseball fans, even if it's just one. It's we have the game means a lot to us, and we followed it very closely for a long time, been fans, and it's the sport thrives off of people coming together and talking about it, and you know discussing it. It's one of those sports that it's a lot of the game can be, talked about and discussed more so than just more so than just watched. And it's something that different people. There's a lot of things about baseball that are opinion based. Different people can have different opinions on things, and it's just a really fun sport to talk about, discuss. And when you have friends and family that are involved in that, that's a really good thing. And so I think that's a big deal, and I definitely appreciate everyone out there listening, and I'm glad that you've been able to make new fans out of it. You know, make new fans for the game of baseball through through sharing the podcast with friends and family. So
Yeah, and one thing is that that I find a little bit cooler through people reaching out through the podcast and getting into the podcast is if you haven't been a fan or you haven't kept up with baseball, it can be very overwhelming to try and jump into. Like the games happen every single day. There's so many different little stats to try and keep up with. There's so many different little quirks that every team or player has that it's a lot harder to try and keep on top of. Whereas in football, it's one day, or you have a Thursday, you have all day Sunday, and then you have a Monday game, but it's widely covered and it's pretty simple. Like what passing yards is, what touchdowns, what interceptions are. Like if you come into baseball, what's ERA? What does that mean? Like, what is a slugging percentage? What does that mean? What is on base plus slugging? What is a weighted runs created plus? Like, there's so many different numbers and stats that you throw out in baseball that makes it overwhelming to try and jump into. And then on top of the fact that 162 games for one single team is happening, like that's a lot for somebody to try and keep up on every single day. If you're a new fan, you're bound to miss if 2 to 3 games a week, most likely. Even if you're a new fan trying to get in to be hard or a hardcore fan, even there's going to be times that you miss games. So having people use or allow us to be a place that they are able to get caught up on everything, and know that we're going to pretty much fill in as much as we can with what's happened through the past week. um, I think that's another cool thing that I've come to find through the podcast, at least, is how many people are they do miss the little things or don't understand what all the stats are, and that or you kind of use us for that platform.
yeah, that's definitely part of our goal is of doing this podcast. It's been to spread the um, you know spread the spread the game around to people, and help people understand some of the stats from a level of, we're going to use all the stats. We're going to talk about some of the advanced stats. And that's one cool thing about baseball is that you've got your old basic stats that people know about, batting average, who's got hitting the most home runs, who's hit the most doubles, who steals the most bases. But there's a lot of more in-depth stats that that you can go further and further into stats to places that me and Damien and I don't even get to. I mean, it's a game that, since it's such an individual performance based game, obviously it's a team sport, but it's very individual based. And a lot of the analytics and stuff of the game of baseball are can be really important and be a big deal compared to other games that it's such a team base that you don't know who's doing what. So I think it's one of those things that it's really neat to think about. With this being such a sport that's based off of one-on-one matchups, the fact that there's just so many statistics, so much depth to the game, and it's really one of those few games that you can legitimately think about as as a game that is statistic based. It's the most statistic based game. It's the one that you can discuss the most, I believe. So it's really good to spread that around, and I think part of our goal is to kind of help people understand that. So I think it's pretty great, and I'm glad that that's something that we're working on doing, and seem to be hopefully doing pretty well with. So
Yeah, and even if it's something that we haven't even done the best at, but it's something that we can know for sure that it's a helpful thing to have both sides of that coin, and something that we can even look to improve going forward for sure. But just basically want to say thank you again to everyone that allows us to be, a source for you to listen about baseball and learn about baseball, or just hear us blabber on to, if you're a family member, to help us support us or whatever it is. We appreciate every single one of you guys that do, come back and listen and help spread the word about it, because it's truly amazing to me, at least. But let's go ahead and let's kind of take a look back at the year, from the game's perspective, from baseball perspective, and what's a moment or a highlight this year. Yeah, I know where you're going. I think everyone that listens knows where you're going on this one. For the 2021 season that really stood out to you.
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, as a Braves fan and someone who's grown up, rooting for the Braves since I was a little kid, um, that fact that they won their first World Series in my lifetime, it was huge. I mean, and there were so many moments in that train that you know the the Dodger series, to me, for the Braves. After the Dodger series, I was pretty confident in beating the Astros, but the ability to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series that had been kind of our Achilles heel for a long time was one to me. And some of the stories that throughout the postseason, that my favorite one being Tyler Matzek's resurgence in the postseason, was something that was really, I thought that was the coolest story. A guy who had the yips and then became the most clutch pitcher in baseball this year was, I thought that was pretty cool. But, outside of that, I mean, there was just so many great things that happened in 2021 for the game. I mean, in 2021 for the game, that I think it was so important to have a good season after the partial season of 2020. And with the coronavirus going on and getting the fans back in the stadiums, and it was so important. And I thought that you know the the whole season, really, I mean, so many different games in the season that were widely watched, viewed. um I thought that, like the Field of Dreams game was another one that I thought was a really cool highlight for the season. That was one of the most watched baseball games, regular season baseball games, in years. The postseason got great ratings. So I think that, and I think some of the more, the cooler things were stuff like the Rangers opening day home game, where that was the first full crowd at an American sports event in like 2 years. um, some of the things like that, when fans returned and had something to celebrate, being back in a stadium. Baseball kind of led the charge for that, and that was something that everyone will take out of this year, as that was so important. So
Yeah, the fans being back, that was one of the things I was going to mention as well. The Field of Dreams game is an absolute, that was a home run for MLB this year. That was one of the few things that they actually did right. Made the whole production of it. It was probably the biggest game of the year. Um, you know, outside of the World Series and stuff, but the biggest regular season game. Um, at least in recent memory that I can think of. Um, if I had to highlight one thing from the year that I think was probably the most cool, or the thing I enjoyed the most, it was probably, and I know it might be a cliche answer, but it was probably the emergence of an everyday Shohei Otani. like
yes.
like seeing him be able to be a healthy, and not only just, like, we knew he wasn't great at batting from the year when he basically just was a DH. And we had seen the flashes of pitching, but he had never been able to put that together. Being able to put both of them together in a season and see what he could really do, like, be a top of the rotation type starter, and also hit what I think 48 or 49 homers or whatever it was that he did, and have be able to have that impact. That is humongous for the game, to have a player of that talent be able to do that day in and day out. Because you have the top pitchers. You have a Jacob DeGrom, you have the Max Scherzer, you had Clayton Kershaw of old, where people would be like, man, these guys are the best pitchers, but they're just the best pitchers. Like, you only get to see them once every 5 days. And then you have a guy like Mike Trout, who everyone says like he's the greatest baseball player to play the game right now and might even be the greatest of all time. And you can see him every day, but being able to see somebody have the level of impact on both sides of the ball, being able to have that impact offensively and be able to shut down a team, on the mound, that I just feel like that in itself was the biggest or the coolest storyline to me this year on top of everything else.
Yeah, no doubt, and I agree with that 100%. You know, you talk about. I think the thing that's so cool about Otani is that Jacob Degrom. He's great. Mike Trout, he's great. But at the end of the day, Jacob Degrom's a pitcher, and there's been great pitchers before, and he's the greatest pitcher right now. Mike
Hmm.
Trout, he's a great player. There's been great players before, and he's probably the greatest player right now. And then you look at Otani, and he's unique. He's something completely different that we haven't ever seen before, and that's what draws people to sports. That's what draws people to baseball right now is the fact that you can go watch somebody do something that nobody's ever done before. That's the type of things that'll make baseball really popular and make people entertained because they watch and see how hard it is for these guys to hit, and they watch and see how hard it is for these guys to pitch, and then they watch somebody who does both at a high level,
And makes
and I
it look
think that's
easy.
it makes it look easy, especially at the plate makes it look easy.
Yeah.
And that's something that you see that it's just it's just it's remarkable. And that is one thing that 2021 will be known for. Also you got to think about the no hitters is one other thing that I forgot to mention. Breaking those records for amount of no hitters in a season. I think we would end up at 7, 8.
I think
um,
8.
8, or it was 8 including the 7 inning no hitter.
Might have been.
Okay,
It might
so
have
yeah,
been.
I would see. I don't remember if 8 was including or not including Bumgarner's 7 inning no hitter, but either way, um, that was another thing that was pretty crazy, and so it was a really interesting year. It was an exciting year. I think that people will look back on this season as thinking about how the sport of baseball really had a resurgence this year, in my opinion. I think a lot of people, um, I think a lot of people were, you know, a little bit worried about the direction of the game before this year, and I think that this year, helped answer a lot of those questions. I think there were some good things done. I think that you kind of look at the way that the game heads going forward, in that it seems like a lot of the rules that were kind of put in because of COVID, and they were trying to see if they wanted to make those long-term rules and stuff. A lot of the bad ones are probably getting reversed pretty soon, like the 7 inning no hitters and and also the uh, the extra innings rule. It sounds like those are probably not going to return, which I think is a really good thing. Um, but I really thought 2021 was fantastic from a baseball standpoint, and you had an exciting start to the offseason for this year. Obviously the lockout could end up killing all the momentum we have, depending on how that goes over the next month or two. But a lot of people were a lot of excitement around the game, during the season, and then at the beginning of the off season. So we'll see where this lockout goes. But 2021, just kind of to sum it up in general, was a great season for the sport, great year for the sport, and I think that we are at a crossroads right now, and going forward to 2022, we're going to have a very very difficult time, but it's a time that could really pay off big time in the long run. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, in 2021, I think the thing is it gave momentum back to the game of baseball. Like it had been a game that prior to 2020, the hardcore fans were always going to like baseball, but it had become a thing where it was kind of stale in trying to get new people in, new viewers, new fans, new companies wanting to come in and be sponsors for stadiums or whatever it is. It was really hard to, the game had become stale in that way. And, with the whole 2020 season and then coming back in 2021, it seemed like it had kind of got a new life in 2021. It had got kind of that mojo back or the mystique of what baseball used to be. And it was it was highlighted by having a Field of Dreams game, something that had never been done before, having, the full stadiums back, being the first sport to be able to do that. And then just in general, like the way that the on-field product was this year with the no-hitters, like giving stuff to talk about with a guy like Shohei Otani, with a guy like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., with Fernando Tatis doing what he has always done, like he has done for the past couple years. It just felt like baseball got a fresh start, or a breath of fresh air this year, um, and a lot of momentum heading forward. That I hope that this, going into this new year, hopefully they can get the lockout resolved, because it feels like we're heading for maybe that kind of a 2020-ish type season where it kind of starts stalling out again, when I feel like it was kind of just getting ready to take off to a new level, after 2021, and then the start of the off season at least.
Yeah, and I think just kind of sum that up too. Talk about the crossroads of the game. If you watch the other sports, the NFL and the NBA, I think their products are getting worse right now. I think if you watch the NFL, a lot of the excessive amounts of penalties and a lot of the things that should be easy in the NFL right now are, that it's been rough. And I think that you look at the, Major League Baseball and the way the game, I mean, the NBA, the way that game is played, like everyone's jacking up long threes for no reason. Nobody's playing defense. Nobody seems to really care on the floor. All that stuff is been that's stuff that's been kind of going on, and but baseball seems to be in a direction the game, it's not getting worse. I mean, and it could be getting better depending on the ways how you look at it. So, the quality of play has never been this good before. When you look at pitchers throwing, as hard as they're throwing, and hitters being able to hit the ball as well as they do against that elite pitching. I mean, nobody's ever played the game of baseball at this level, and I think that if you kind of look forward at the next, at the future, um, I'm very I think that there's a real opportunity here for baseball to reemerge as the kind of the America's pastime. So, um, but that's just something that I think is kind of the summary of 2021 is that we went from being in a rough situation with the game, lots of question marks about the momentum of the game and how the game is played on the field, to where I think we resolved a lot of those questions this year. And I think going forward, you know, looking at the lockout and everything, I think we're kind of looking at a situation where 2022, we're going to look at some of the rules of the game, as in like the money rules and stuff, the behind the scenes stuff. But I think that when you're actually looking at the product on the field, I think it's probably as good as you could hope for. And the fact that you watch these other sports are declining really in quality of play, quality of the product. So the product of Major League Baseball is on the uprise, and the product of these other sports is on the downswing, I think. And that's something that's really important to look at, and that's something that honestly to me it really showed up in 2021.
Yeah, it really did, and that's a great point with how the games of NFL and NBA are kind of taking a downtick by all the penalties and the flags being thrown, or in baseball or the basketball, breathing on somebody and you get called for foul, and then the complaining about it. And there is a lot that those sports can do to improve themselves, but it does seem like baseball is kind of getting that tick back, um, to being one of the better on field products, at least. But looking forward to 2022, you kind of mentioned it a little bit about what we could see, like rules wise or money wise. But what's one storyline, or maybe a couple storylines, throughout the game of baseball that you're kind of looking forward to, for the 2022 season and maybe even beyond?
Yeah, so I think the obvious answer is going to be how the lockout's resolved. I think that a lot of those things to most fans aren't going to be seen, stuff like how arbitration works, how service time works, and with when it comes to free agency, um, those kinds of rules, the manipulation, the minor leagues, all that stuff's probably not going to be seen too much by the typical fan. But there's a lot of on the field things that are going to be looked at too. Stuff like you know, the uh, the DH rule. How's that going to be resolved? And I think that some of those things are, big storylines going into the year. Obviously, I think that you know when if obviously if we have the season and starting on time and everything because of lockout, COVID, all kinds of stuff. But if everything starts on time and all, I think baseball wise this year, I think some of the storylines are, uh, you know, I think the continued um, look at the Major League above of the sticky stuff thing, and how that works out for over a full season if pitchers make adjustments after the sticky stuff crackdown. It's a lot easier to make those adjustments in the off season when you're able to kind of throw and develop and do some different things. I think a continued look at the baseball and whether the ball is going to be carrying a lot further or not carrying far, or what baseball we're going to have. We're going to have 2020, which was like absolutely ridiculously juiced, or we're going to have 2021, which was moderately juiced, or we're going to have like the 2013 ball where you could barely hit 30 home runs would lead the league. So I think that's one thing to look at, and in the quality of the game. So I think there's a lot of things to look at. Obviously, the young talent in the game. I think Major League Baseball in 2022. I think in 2021 they took some steps forward to marketing the young talent better, but I think in 2022 they need to continue to make more strides on that. Stuff like when you have like a Sunday Night Baseball ad, instead of saying, "Oh, it's the old timey fashion rivalry between the Yankees and the Red Sox," they should ought to be marketing the fact that Aaron Judge is about to face Chris Sale or something. Like that's kind of the important things that you're going to need to see are looking at the the individual players and the personalities of the players too. um, I think that and I think that the game is in a good position if the lockout is resolved to have a fantastic 2022 season and year in general. Um, so we'll see what happens. I'm hoping that this lockout is done by end of January. I do not want to see spring training starting to get postponed because that could have, implications on the beginning of the season. That could have implications on most of the spring being, spring training being shortened, and then you get injuries again, something like that. You don't want to see that. So, I definitely think that those are some big things. And then the one other thing to look at in the game this year is who's going to be that next guy that's like an Otani that breaks out and does something that people don't that you haven't seen before. And you're not going to have another Otani this year type breakout. I mean, you'll have Otani himself, but you won't have another breakout like that. But what 2022 are you going to see that you haven't seen before? What kind of really fun new stuff are you going to see? Because that's, like I say, that's the biggest thing. That's what keeps people coming back to sports. Is it's unpredictable, and you know people have make feats that you've just never seen in a sport before. And that's just something that I'd love to see in 2022, is have another superstar breakout, whether it's um, somebody that's like a young player that could end up being really good. There's some candidates in the minor leagues that could end up coming up and being great. And you look at some of the current players that are there that um, might be great. So we'll see. And obviously some other stuff and surprises and anything you might find out. So I'm really excited for 2022. Hopefully like I say, hopefully this lockout gets resolved and we'll have a fantastic year. And there's a lot to look forward to, absolutely, going into next year.
Yeah, and you pretty much took everything I was going to say right out of my mouth with that, because um, being the lockout getting resolved is obviously a big issue, and we're going to talk more about the lockout coming forward. So I don't want to talk your ear off about that now, but the marketing of the young talent is something, and the allowing of emotion to be back into the game, or allowing emotion to be in the game, and it being one of those unwritten rules that people, a lot of people don't like, that players aren't allowed to show emotion or have fun on the baseball field because it's disrespectful to the other team. A player can hit a 500-foot home run, but he's not allowed to show off a little bit. He has to put the bat down and sprint around the bases. And it's just, we're starting to get to the other side where it's okay to do that. It's okay to show that emotion and be fired up about things. um but the big thing that I was going to look forward to, and you mentioned it right there, was, you know what what young star is going to come up. Like, we have the young people, we have the Juan Sotos, we have the Ronald Acuñas, we have the Tatises, we have even Wander Franco. We saw him this year. But when is that, like, the next we're seeing that building of the next group of stars, but when are they going to become, like, kind of change the guard and be the guys? You still have some of the other guys. You still have a guy like Harper, who has been around for a long time. You have a guy like Trout, who's been around for a long time. You have, you have other people around the league that have been around for a long time that I am just named blanking on right now because I'm trying to think of them.
Arenado,
Um, yeah, Arenado, even Mookie Betts.
Goldschmidt,
Yeah, Goldschmidt was a star for
Freddie
one time.
Freeman. I mean,
Yeah, when is that like changing of the guard going to be, where, like, these guys are now the guys in the league? And how are they going to keep taking those steps forward to ensure that, we know Juan Soto is an incredible player, but what next step can he take? We know Ronald Acuna is a great player. How is he going to rebound from his knee injury? Is that going to affect him at all, or is he going to come back and be better than ever? What steps can a guy like Wander Franco take, who had the breakout year this year? Can he avoid that sophomore slump, per se, and can he just continue his greatness so far? um, you know are we going to see Adley Rutschman come up this year, and is he going to be able to live up to the hype? It's a lot harder for catchers to be able to do that because you're trying to maintain a pitching staff, and be an everyday, like, game caller. But what can he do, to solidify the number one overall prospect in baseball ranking? Like, there's a bunch of different storylines around the young guys this year, that I'm kind of just looking forward. Like, when are they going to be able to take, or what are they going to be able to do to take that next little step to kind of prove that it's kind of like the changing of the guard. It's their time, that these other guys, who have been around for 6 to 10 years or whatever, that we see it in the game of baseball. Father Time is undefeated, but when is that changing time going to come? There's always a new crop of talent, but when is that change actually going to happen? And I do think that 2022 could be a year where you see some of that.
yeah, absolutely. And I think we saw a little bit of that this past year, but I think that trend continuing is a definite possibility and something to look forward to for this year. So, um, you know, it's definitely going to be a fun 2022. I'm excited for it. I think everyone should be excited for it, assuming like we've talked about, the lockout can end on time. So we're all I think we're all looking forward to it, and we'll be able to keep you updated here with the podcast. I think we're Damien and I are both very excited to continue working on this, and I think going forward over the next couple months, we'll be talking a lot more about the 2022 season, giving you some previews, maybe start running through divisions a little bit, and try to keep improving our product. I haven't really talked about it much, but I just bought a new computer, so there's some more things I might be able to do podcast wise with my new computer. With maybe help improve my quality a little bit at least. And then maybe branch out, do a little bit of other stuff. I've kind of thought about starting to stream a little bit on the when the new baseball video game, the new show comes out in April, so maybe we'll get to do some of that. And definitely a lot to look forward to in 2022. I think we're very excited to move forward, and I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, there's a lot to look forward to going into 2022. One thing that I want to definitely improve on, and I know we've talked about it, off air, but I want to find some way to be more interactive, with people that do listen to the show, or whatever. Like I said, I have a lot of people with, like, family or close to me that they can text me, but not everyone's able to do that. And our main social media platform right now is Twitter. And I know a lot of people don't have that. So I want to be able to try and find some way, if that is through maybe a streaming some stuff on YouTube or whatever, that's a lot easier to get to. Just find a way to be able to improve our presence, and be able to be more interactive with everyone, and help grow this more, because I feel like that's probably an area where we're really lacking, is just being able to hear people out, get people's opinions, and maybe be able to have those opinions on the show, or be able to have like questions on the show, just allowing us to have more content for you guys somehow. That's something I definitely want to look forward to improving in 2022. So, but I like, once again, I just want to say thank you guys for listening to the show every week, and sticking with us through the 2 to 3 week absences when I get sick or something. But you know, this 2021 year has been really amazing for the podcast. It has grown to even a level through this past year that I didn't think it was going to happen, even if it's still smaller numbers. Like, when you start, you're happy to get 4 or 5 listeners, and being able to say that this year alone, we had an average of 11 listeners per episode, and 530 people listen to us almost on Apple, and another 80 or something on uh on Spotify alone. So you're talking about over 600 listeners. It does mean a lot to me, especially, and I'm sure you radiate that same feeling, Matt. But I just can't say
Absolutely.
enough about what it has meant to me, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's big, and I absolutely appreciate everybody. And if y'all want to interact with us, like Damien talked about, that's something that we definitely want to do with the show. A lot of the reason for us doing this is so we can talk baseball with people, and we need people to talk baseball back with us. So, hit us up on Twitter if you have it. Or at the Bat Flip Podcast, and our both of our Twitters are in the are listed on that page. And we're we'd love to interact with everybody. And if you ever send us questions through the Twitter and everything, then we'll answer them on the show and all. So definitely, definitely very happy with that. And we'll try to do some things to spice it up a little bit, improve a little bit on our presence there, because it can be difficult to reach out on different platforms, because that's kind of the platform we've always used. So we're definitely going to work to reach out a little bit more on other platforms. And like I said, kind of look for us to maybe try some different things this year, that we haven't done before. So I'm definitely looking forward to stuff like that. I think it'll be fun. So um, for 2022, we're gonna hopefully we'll have a little bit of tricks up our sleeve that we haven't tried before. So
Absolutely, we do. But we don't want to make this episode too long. We kind of wanted it to be a shorter, fun episode. Just being able to kind of review the 2021 year for not only baseball, but for us as the podcast, and kind of just look forward to 2022. But we'll definitely have more content, coming for you guys. So thank everyone for tuning in this past year, and thank everyone that listens to this episode of the Bat Flip Podcast. And we'll catch you guys in 2022.
thanks everybody.